So exactly 6 minutes past 9, you're still watching Smart Means Business, your daily Kickstarter for the day. I'm Andrew Bariji with Joram Paul Sunko this morning as we are driving your business. Of course, we bring you that right information, quite very key and influential for your business growth and development. You know, the biggest question in here is how do you position yourself for this information to be very important for you. You know, Joram, I realize one thing. Sometimes majority of the people become wealthy. You know, like we've been having a discussion about money, which makes you rich. Sometimes it comes in a way, it could be like a gig, a deal or
a token of appreciation.
A token of appreciation. It all comes back to positioning.
Exactly. And of course, I think it is the same kind of situation where money is, is not something you project to come your way, or it's not a success on a salary whereby you will expect to earn maybe 3 million a month, and you can do something with that 3 million. At times you realize that the 3 million per month is not going to be enough.
There's a level you might never transition to
if you're still stuck on that kind of mentality, because with the salary kind of situation is you're supposed to be saving money for your bills, buying a few clothes, not only clothes, buying, let's say, paying your bills, clearing rent here and there, funding a few of your lifestyles, fuel and everything, transportation. But then when you come to the state of elevation, the next step,
that
building,
financial freedom, feeling that
freedom, building and your house, starting up your business, there is an X factor that you need to address, really.
Okay, absolutely.
And as a matter of fact, you get to realize that even with this particular app that we're having currently, clearly shows you that at the 14th African Union high-level private sector, summit or delegation that was actually happening in Nairobi, most of the discussions were rotating around, finding solutions to unemployment.
Solution. Okay.
And discussions around value addition. Because unemployment is a very big concern in Africa, and of course, surprisingly though, people are still surviving even with unemployment. Now imagine if you have those survival tactics at the same time you are employed, how much more of your
income per cap
would be, because in a time whereby you're not earning,
but you're able to catch up a lifestyle. Sustain life in a certain way.
So if at all you continue with that kind of set in regards to maintaining that kind of lifestyle after you're done working, is something that people need to, after you've got the job as well, is something that people really need to look at, to look into. The only idea about getting a job is at times it makes us feel more comfortable, because maybe you have a salary coming in.
It brings out this aspect that with the private sector, when you're owning your own business, if you don't work, you're not going to earn. But here, you have this perspective that even though I don't put in my best, because that's really because you're not on tension.
So you're putting the
burden to the owner.
Yeah. So it's something that happens a lot, and it is something that most of the people think about. So when you look at what was happening at the 14th African Union high-level private sector forum in Nairobi, you realize that at the closure of it all, the revelations were there is a need for a robust private sector in order to realize Africa's sustainable and economic transformation in achieving growth objectives of Africa's economies. Because when you look at Africa's, most of the Africans in the private sector, there is a way the private sector is owning our economy.
Actually, it does. It really does a lot, because you see, with government itself, because sometimes the pressure comes back to the government, but the primary role of the government is simply to provide a conducive atmosphere for you to trade on individual basis, making sure that the taxes, because the biggest issue now, for example, Uganda, taxes, levied almost on here and all that, but once that you put down the taxes, and that is not in the power of me as an individual, as a business person, but you, the authority, you have power to say that, Andrew, I've been charging 20%, now I'm charging 8%.
Yeah,
I trade.
And of course, there's also something to do with the African Continental Free Trade Area here. That is actually being highlighted, that there is need to work on state parties to adjust to a new liberalized and integrated trading environment, which is established under the AfCFTA agreement. The negotiations are being limited, of course, due to protocol. Because
that's the FCTA.
There's a lot of bureaucracy that needs to be really followed to ensure that such things are, worked upon and to push for the growth really of free trade, of the free trade zones in Africa. But I think these protocols are limiting expansion of most of the businesses, because when you come to think of it, most of the business people in Kenya, Uganda, there are those who are already into cross-border trade.
Absolutely.
But because of these limitations, they cannot go into such spaces. And because when you look at Africa is at 3%, and yet there is 17% of world population, and there is need to collaborate to clear the issue of jobs in Africa. So that means we really need to collaborate with countries. If Tanzania has job opportunities, why shouldn't Ugandans get in that space?
Actually, I was even looking at this aspect of people that, this whole process of labor externalization, the fact that why are we so much focused on the Middle East?
On the Middle East, I think
yet we have this coming up.
There are relations that are signed between countries here and there in regards to labor agreements and labor laws, obviously, because with the agreement between Uganda and Saudi Arabia, both countries definitely have to benefit from the income these workers are earning, and also for when you look at the money someone earns in the Middle East by salary, you get to realize it may be more than what someone could earn from Nigeria or from Ghana, unless you're a high professional, because the domestic jobs that are available in there can earn you close to let's say $300 per month. That is close to 1.8. No, that's close to 1.1. 1 million. It's actually around $280, around 1 million shillings. So when you look at such jobs and you're a domestic worker earning 800,000, which is the average income of a government worker here. At 800,000, so you get to realize that at least the Middle East will offer you the opportunity, because you're not going to pay rent. You have no extra charges, no paying of food, no you're in-house all day. Maybe because there's a lot of work you're supposed to be doing on a daily. That would be the bigger issue.
So okay, I mean, my own issue has been in the terms of when it comes to exploitation of labor, that okay, I'm earning a good salary, but the conditions in which I'm working in are not really. I know someone may say, me, I would rather go for the money. I don't care the situation. Of course, money is never easy to make.
Yeah, most of them go in for the money. But after 2 years of mistreatment or facing certain issues, but these are cases that normally happen when someone is actually traveling with an illegal company or a company that is not licensed. And once such scenarios do happen, really, you get to realize that it leads to what someone could say, insecurities in amongst those who have been working there. You feel like you're traumatized and you wouldn't want to move out of your country ever again to go in. But of course, there have been those resilient Ugandans who have moved out. 2 years after the contract is done, they've renewed. They have actually those who have actually been there for close to 10 years now. And they have built houses here in Uganda, whereby they realize that after maybe 10 years time, I'll get back, settle, concentrate on my investments that I've made. They may not be,
as long as somebody is not paying rent.
But as long as you've built your house and you have a source of income, and most of the people invest in real estate because at least they know within 10 years you'll be still earning some salary coming. It will be like
even though it's little, but at least
monthly salary. Because I've come to realize, even though people would say that there is no return on investment in real estate, but as long as you've invested something into, at times we really need to understand that not everybody is after making huge sums of money.
As long as you have enough that can take you through a month, you can pay your
actually some people are free to live in a life whereby if at all I have my 5 rentals and they can get me 300,000 per month. And lately these days, after 2 years, people tend to actually increase the prices of according to the cost of living. You increase it because you have to do maintenance and everything. However much, because when you look at rentals, with time if you can't put up others, they're going to get worn out,
definitely.
you know, and you lose it. But at least in 10 years' time, because I've seen most of the people who go into retirement at the age of 50, they have their rental somewhere, and at least it's bringing in 200,000, 300,000 a month, and you at least have $1 million
that sits down there.
And remember, as the more you age, the more your desire for earthly things also reduces. So your cost, the way you see things changes. The way you used to spend changes. You're not going to be traveling all the time. You're not going to be used to partying. Rather you want peace. Have your bills settled. Make sure that at least your home is in good shape. Normally, and if you're in around 50 years and 60, and you have where you can earn 3 million a month. You're good to go in a Ugandan setting here.
Very good. Actually, maybe when you have kids now, all you're thinking about is catering.
And normally when you're 60, currently, at times your children are old, or they're done with school, and they're also into their hustling age. And we've seen a couple of times where we even earn more than our parents, but we rush to them to bail us out.
Problem. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it clearly gives you a picture.
What it means to be a parent,
of what it means to be a parent,
time.
And you see, the African narrative has actually really changed lately around how we create an atmosphere that is filled up with, the change in the way we do things. Africa is a funny world whereby you're living for today. Whether you're 50, that is why even in retirement, we expect most of the people to retire at 60. People are not retiring, and someone is still on the job. You're having a workman who is twice as old as you are. But of course, it's not because they want to be in that space, but because of the fact that things have really changed. Once you leave your job, you can't survive for a year. The only way you can survive, and especially if you're a man, the only way you can survive for a year is maybe when you have friends who are always bailing you out. But even during that year, you're still going to be doing certain jobs, certain few gigs here and there.
And it gets worse when you're renting.
When you're renting, exactly. And of course, at times you find others rushing back home, or not only that, you get a friend and you sub-rent together, or in the long run, you either, do, gigs. Because you cannot really survive.
But I think it also matters the Chuba you do at that time, at that age.
At that age, it really does.
What Chuba you're going to do, because even people look at you as a risk to give you a job.
At a 40-year-old, there's a certain job that you cannot do. At 50, there's a certain job you can do because of the nature of the jobs, really. But of course, in the service sector, the funny part about it is that in the service, we have people in the transportation sector, for example, who are 50 years, driving buses. They have built actually houses through these. We have people who are driving taxis, started driving taxis, and now bought their own taxis out of this.
And they're still driving despite that they have their own.
Yeah, because at least, when you realize transportation, in the transportation sector, is actually more profitable when the taxi is yours. Because if you ever have a sit down with a border person and he owns his own border, at least the chances are high that he's going to be earning more than the other. Because one, it is your own border. Again, you're not going to ride it like as if you don't care, because it's your source of income. You have to fuel it, and these are some of the things that we're living in currently. And this is the private sector. The private sector is subdivided in two: the formal and the informal sector. And in Africa, the informal sector seems to be on the wheels of driving
and
the
actually
economy.
It's very surprising that even some of the most people that we look up to, like being wealthy and all that, away from them having, the informal sector, at some point I feel like it's been also some sort of a money laundering scheme, useful, whereby people generate millions and billions of money from that.
From the small businesses.
But because, and they are really making a livelihood on that. But these other structures they have, which are formal, because they know they pay taxes, lots of them, they're just in there to make it look like.
I think the formal world is more corporate, because it gives you, for the educated, the people who have been from, from literate backgrounds or from the education backgrounds, they love the corporate world simply because of you get to rub shoulders with with different people in here and there. But even those in offices know that their investment strategies are always in the informal sector.
Perfect.
You set up a business in the informal world.
Because somebody will tell you, I know.
Because you know that small business is earning money every day. It's generating new income on a daily, and
very true.
I think that is what most of the people in the business, you know, that's why in the working environment you realize if someone is walking out of the workspace, they rush to those businesses immediately as they are looking for other jobs, but they first go back to their businesses to see how, you know, how business is, because even in your retirement at times you find out that you're out of contract to work for any other company, so that means
there is no time where you can't work for any person.
So all you need to do is you've outgrown being an employee, and now all you need to do is freedom of being self-employed. I think that is where we are at the moment.
Very interesting. But of course, as to accompany this, let's get into this coming up discussion, and of course when we return we shall proceed with our insight.
I am particularly gratified by the theme of this forum, whose focus is on public-private sector engagement for inclusive growth and sustainable development, with emphasis on deepening regional and continental trade and investment towards the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Indeed, AfCFTA's trade agenda resonates well with East African communities' inter-partner state trade policies, while betokening both entities with a welcome congruence of purpose and prospect. Notably, one of the key drivers in the realization of the AfCFTA's objective, private sector, given especially its ability to catalyze sustainable economic development and job creation.
Most of the work that we also need to finalize so that all these protocols can come into force, and that they can be then used by our private sector fully. Now, what we hope to do with these protocols and the work that has already been undertaken is then to have a market expansion in the continent. And here, maybe just to mention that we have 54 countries that have already signed this agreement. So out of the 55 countries of the African Union, only one is yet to sign. And of course, we at the AfCFTA, led by His Excellency Wamkele Mene, are working tirelessly to ensure that we have our more country signing the agreement.
If we are 17% of the world population, you then can imagine we could support 17% of the global production, because we are the consumer. So we would move production from 3 to 17. That is increasing production.
I am particularly gratified by the theme of this forum, whose focus is on public.
And of course, I think you get to realize how the stakeholders in there were actually putting this clear in regards to the African free trade zones, and as well as looking at it as the opportunity. Because when you look at Honorable Rebecca Miano, who is the Kenya Cabinet Secretary for the East African Community Affairs, revealed that, you know, the African Continental Free Trade Area is one that they are looking through to at least, you know, ideally, you know, project a growth of the African private sector.
Definitely.
And of course also lead to the expansion of the informal sector in Africa.
Yeah, and we only hope that we shall have, stakeholders that are working for us. I'm talking about development partners, to make sure that this move is really efficient, and this will mean, and now that's why you're going to see some issues within the Western and the communist bloc. I strongly believe the communist bloc is for our side. We might face a little bit of resistance, because according to my discussions I had from the people who are, you know, at the forefront of this, you get to realize that there is some sort of a force working against the implementation of this. You know, actually, Somalia was among those countries that hadn't ratified that agreement, but the rest of the countries are that. I don't know how far they've gone. That I'll find out that more. But that actually is one of the reasons why there was a little bit of delay. Why? Because this is supposed to be on by now. I feel like it's too late. We are getting late. Every day we're talking about this, but implementation, and we say that today Africa is now borderless. Literally, it's like creating a United States of Africa. This is where this is heading. All right, it's 27 minutes past 9, and of course, before we get into the break, the markets on the Zabo platform are already on. Start 292 hash is the code for you there, which will enable you with options to be in position to buy bonds and securities for just 15,000 Ghana shillings. But of course, you need to first register with your national identification number. Now, the markets opened at 8:15 a.m. and they'll be running till 3:15 p.m. East African time. This is effective Monday up to Friday, apart from the weekends and the public holidays when these markets cannot be accessed. Now, this week had no public holiday, and yes, so we still have today and tomorrow to trade bonds and securities. Zabo made this a reality. All you need is your mobile phone, whether it's a smartphone or a button phone. This is made very possible. Trading bonds and securities is the new normal. Zabo says, my money, my future, and All Texas Africa tells us, do something new. It's the year 2023. And now let's get into the break. Of course, our insight still proceeds.